Now, this is the sort of video that I would ideally like to be viral. Not because I think it's great quality, but subject matter I think is important. And it's the sort of video I would like if this channel ever really kicks off. Um, More so, it's the sort of thing I would like people to sort of consider the sort of subject matter I'm raising in this. I talk about a lot of things. I talk about things in the news. I talk about things in society, and I'm not suggesting that I'm original. I'm not suggesting that I'm the first person to talk about them by any means. But if people could take away some sort of new angle from my videos, or perhaps something I say they can maybe reflect on, that's a good thing. It means I'm not there's some purpose to doing this. So this one might be a little bit different, but like I say, I think it's important. Yeah. So in the modern world, so much interaction is online. I mean, I can make a whole channel probably on the influence of social media, which includes YouTube. But one thing I've noticed is the way people communicate is often very unthinking. Now, I'm not saying that before social media, people were always thoughtful and no, I'm not saying that at all. I mean, in the 1990s, you could find plenty of examples of, just to use a recent example, like rather than going way back, in the 1990s, you could find plenty of examples of bullying or, people being unpleasant, unthinking. So I don't think it's necessarily that social media has changed human behavior necessarily. It might be that it's exposed some of the worst of it in terms of how people communicate. But I think sometimes we could be a bit too negative about social media. There's a lot of good to it as well. I mean, it keeps friends in touch. It can build relationships. It can galvanize important movements. So I don't think that social media is all bad. Um, but one of these things that I've noticed is this way that people label others. Now, I'm not saying this in a sort of oh, let's all hold hands and get on sort of way. Um, I'm thinking in terms of, you'll get a person who is in some reality television documentary, for example. I've been watching a few on catfishing, incidentally, which is something I've only really learned about recently. If you don't know, basically it refers to people pretending to be someone else online in order to, well, for a range of reasons. The catfish term apparently comes from literally a catfish, this kind of fish, which apparently used to be put into cod um, shipping containers, and the cod would act as if it was other cod. It was something to do with. It's quite an unusual background etymology to the word. I always thought it was kind of a sexual reference somehow, but anyway, I've learned that's what the term means. But in one of these clips, there was this guy who was catfishing people, and he was just being a rather pathetic individual. He was wasting people's times. He was playing emotional games with them for a laugh, for fun. But I think you could read between the lines. You could see this was an individual who had very low self-esteem. He obviously had to do it to make himself feel better or whatever. But anyway, some of the comments were things along the lines of, "Oh, he's obviously an incel living in his mother's basement. Um, he's the sort of loser who gets bullied, and so on." What I'm driving at here is, why is it that there's this tendency to ascribe certain adjectives and certain characteristics to unpleasant people that actually don't necessarily insult that person, but they're some sort of sweeping attack on other people. I'll give you an example. Well, a few examples. Gay as an insult. Now, this I actually made a video about this, and my friend Christian was in that video. He's gay, and this was years ago. I was just asking his thoughts on it. Um, It's something that you find sort of in especially alpha male circles. It's like these bro circles, you know. Um, Most mature men don't behave like this, but it's there. Perhaps less so today because there's a bit more of a stigma about being homophobic, as there should be. But kind of like, oh, that's gay, man, that's gay. You see this in boxing in the trash talking. I remember Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe used to say, you know, some of their trash talking it brought gay into it. Um, so gay in itself was deemed to be an insult. Why? Because it refers to homosexual men. I don't know. And I guess if that's leveled at a straight man, well, it's an insult. You see, I wouldn't see it necessarily as an insult. I'd see it as just, well, it's inaccurate. I like women. It's inaccurate. Um, I've had my share of bullying, my hair color, my accent when I came to England. But that's a strange one, you know, when you get an unpleasant person and people will say things like, there's an expression in the UK, Billy No Mates, as if not having friends is kind of a, I don't know, it's driving at something else, or he must have been bullied as a kid, laughing emoji. So it's almost like, oh, we're being smart attacking this unpleasant person, but the way that they're doing it is by kind of invalidating the experiences of other people, like something funny about bullying. So this unpleasant person, let's say he's a bullying victim or she's a bullying victim, because bullying victims must be losers. That's the implication. So it's a stupid way to describe someone. If someone's being selfish or unpleasant or whatever way they are being unpleasant, focus on that. But you know, that's the sort of thing. It gets on my nerves because I think it's misused. Another one is, you know, if someone's lonely, there's this cruel tendency, and I'm not suggesting this is across the board, but you do get this. You'll get people who think, oh well, there must be something wrong with them. If they're single, there must be something creepy about them or something off with them because they're alone. People don't consider, well, actually, it's the world that we live in. People aren't getting social opportunities. The pandemic certainly didn't help. But it's this perception that, well, they've been single for a long time, there must be something wrong with them. Maybe they just haven't had the opportunity. Um, you know, virgin, and this person's a virgin, that's a big one in the West. It's a point of ridicule. And it's not like, you know, you get people who are virgins, right? They haven't had sexual experience by choice, maybe for religious reasons, that's common. A lot of Christians, for example, won't have sex before marriage. I imagine some Muslims have that sort of piety as well. Um, and that's fine, that's their choice, but it's just kind of using it as an insult. Why? I mean, assuming we are looking at cases where that's not a choice, um, and actually, I could make a whole video about this troubling trend in recent years of angry young men who are going to misogynistic sort of forums, the incel community, right? It's got increasing attention because there's been a number of basically terrorist attacks. There was a Toronto lorry attack, 10 people killed. Here in the UK in Plymouth, he was associated with the incel movement. In the United States, Nicholas Cruz and mass shooting at Isla Vista. All three incidents were related to this so-called incel movement, which is angry young men blaming women for their lack of experience. But you know, instead of taking this problem seriously and saying, "Well, this is a serious issue. This is, you know, we need to tackle this misogyny and work out what what is a better vacuum for these young men. What is how can they be steered away from this sort of, well, really radicalization? You know, instead of blaming women for their lack of intimacy, how about just looking at social opportunities or things like that? But no, people have to just make it a big joke. Like this person must be an incel, this person must be a virgin. I think it's you see all that does, it doesn't attack these violent misogynists. What it does is it just stigmatizes people who maybe aren't having that experience. I mean, they're not able to find a partner, they're not having sexual intimacy, but they don't hate women. Um, so it's kind of tarring them with the same brush. It pisses me off. And before people jump to conclusions, I'm not a virgin, no. But without going into all the details, I was later than average, right? So the experiences I had came later than they did for some other people. That's it. And I really, really believe that there's all this. I'm quite confident with this because I really think we need to break stigmas. We need to get away from this idea that, for example, men need to, oh well, they can't say that. He must be a loser, or women, anyone for that matter. It's people need to be able to talk about things openly, um, without some idiot online just laughing about it. I mean, you get trolls, you get these sort of people who troll others, but I'm not even talking about trolls. I'm talking about widespread attitudes. I guess a lot of this comes down to I'm not talking about people being politically correct and walking on eggshells. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying that certain insults are just misplaced. If you want to criticize an obnoxious person, if someone's being a misogynist, call him a misogynist. Don't say he must be a virgin, because he might be, but all that's doing is stigmatizing all people who don't have sexual experience. If someone's a bully, it's possible they were bullied themselves, but then, oh, Billy no me. It's like, it's just, it's just these bizarre insults that have no connection to the subject at hand. I think it just causes a lot of unnecessary stigmatizing, for want of a better term. So I just wish people would think a little bit more when they're spouting off their nonsense online or in real life. It doesn't have to be online. Criticism should be very specific. Coming out with these casual insults, aside from being childish, it's just it doesn't really help to solve problems. It doesn't help to get to the root of the issue. So something like um, young men gravitating to misogynistic incel groups. Well, we've heard the news about Andrew Tate being taken off Instagram and TikTok. I've checked out more of his videos. He's a polarizing figure. What I've seen of that guy, and I really don't know that much about him, he seems very full of himself. That's obvious. A lot of the stuff he comes out with is nonsense. I don't think he's entirely wrong in all of his positions. I don't think he's wrong, for example, about patriarchy. He is right to say in one of his videos he was talking about how every civilization in history has been a patriarchy, and that's been a survival mechanism. He's not wrong about that. Where he's wrong is some of his blatantly sexist language and the sort of flippant way that he trivializes things like depression. I think he's a bit of a clown for his attitudes to that. But I don't think he's wrong about everything. Nevertheless, that's the sort of guy that some young men will be looking up to, and that is a problem. Um, Having said that, I came across an interesting video where he was debating with this male feminist, and the guy had pink hair and "I Love Britney" T-shirt, and it was an interesting debate. Actually, I don't think either of these guys were particularly good role models. I mean, the feminist guy wasn't much better because he was saying that there's no merit in physical strength at all, but actually there is, and it is true. If a nation is under attack, I mean, look at Ukraine. Um, Young Ukrainian men, older Ukrainian men as well, for that matter, they've literally had to put their bodies and lives on the line because their country's been invaded. I think at times of war, we really see um, this myth of male privilege being shattered. Um, But I just wish people would be a little bit more thoughtful and reflective. I'm not going to say don't insult people, that's not realistic, but I think insults, if they must be made, should at least be accurate, should at least be accurate to the subject at hand. Calling people virgins, calling people losers in their mother's basements, all that sort of stuff. It's just, it's a lazy argument, it really is. Um, I mean, what if you have a guy who lives with his mother, right? And he is looking after her, he's a carer. So why stigmatize people in that position? And people might say, "Oh, but I'm not talking about them." The problem is these lazy sort of insults, or crazy cat lady is another one. Well, what if a woman has had a miscarriage, or her husband has passed away, and she's going through severe depression, and maybe having pets is a form of therapy. People need to be a little bit kinder. Dare I say it? They need to be a little bit more thoughtful, a little kinder, and yeah, just a bit more thoughtful. By all means criticize, but make it specific. Make it specific. These sort of generic insults, I've no time for it. It's infantile and it's unhelpful. Let me know your thoughts.